Hello, welcome to episode 102 of the Happy Baby Show. Today's episode, I am going to be talking about how I use, but also don't use routine. Now, this sounds quite conflicting, but I want to share exactly why I love routine, the benefits of routine, but what I recommend you using and how to use routine in the right way. So, to kick off, let me talk about why I love routine, the benefits of routine, and how I have seen my daughter, Georgie, thrive on routine, and my two older boys, who are now 4 and 7, almost 5 and 7. So, the first reason why I love routines is because I find that naps and bedtime are timed perfectly, and I'm never left confused wondering if I've got the timing of sleep wrong. So, by knowing and following routine, ultimately what I'm doing is taking into account Georgie's average awake windows, the time at her age, at any given age, as to how long she should be awake. So I'm timing it based on that. And because I'm doing so, because I'm taking into account what she's developmentally capable of in terms of her time awake and when she needs to sleep, it means that when it's nap time and bedtime, that she is ready and she's not overtired, but she's so ready to take a nap or go to bed. And this leads me on to the second reason why I love routine is because it makes for peaceful naps and bedtime. When you have a baby or a toddler who is actually ready to go to sleep, so they're tired enough, but they're not overtired, which for some people feels like a really fine line, but it's not as fine of a line as what some of the things out there lead us to believe. But what it means is she's ready for sleep and therefore she wants to be asleep. This is definitely my experience with the three kids is she wants to be asleep. So we not experience nap resistance and bedtime resistance mostly. I mean, there's always going to be things that pop up, but when it comes to sleep timing and routine, it makes for peaceful nap and bedtimes. The other thing that I love about routine is that because she's ready for sleep, she takes a good nap. She wakes up and she's happy. She wakes up in her cot and she's talking to herself, she's rolling around, and I know she's had a good sleep. And then when she's awake, she takes that happiness and she's able to feed well and she plays well. And she's not following me around, again, most of the time, grumpy and upset and needing a lot of, filling of her cup, all of those sorts of things. Another reason why I love routine is it protects her night sleep. The age-old saying, you should never wake a sleeping baby. That is very untrue because guess what? There is only so much sleep a baby or a toddler or adults need in any given 24-hour period. And if your baby or toddler is sleeping really well during the day, almost too well, then that can eat into their night sleep because there is only so much sleep they need per 24 hours. So by following routine, I know that I'm spacing naps across the day so that it's basically giving her the rest she needs to get to bedtime and to then be able to consolidate a good chunk of, between probably usually 10 to 12 hours of overnight sleep. Night sleep is the holy grail. That is what we want to protect. We want our babies and toddlers to be getting good night sleep because that's where the most restoration happens. So a routine allows for that to happen. I also know that she's getting in the feeds she needs to thrive. So I know that when she's following this routine, I roughly know when breastfeeds are going to be, when she's going to have food, all of those sorts of things. And therefore, she's getting in enough of the food that she needs during the day, which means that she's not feeding all night or in one of those reverse feeding cycles, which I'm going to do an episode on a reverse feeding cycle down the track. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. So that is just a benefit for me is knowing roughly when she's going to feed. Another benefit of routine is anyone can have her. I can either print out one of my routines and give it to daycare, give it to my parents, give it to babysitters, and it lays out for them when everything's going to happen. And that just makes it so easy. If you're handing over your baby It's not requiring the person who's looking after them to do the guesswork because they don't know your baby like you do. Whereas if you can say, okay, this is how a day mostly looks, they've got something easy to follow. It also allows me to keep up with her ever-changing sleep patterns. So this isn't just Georgie, this is every single baby and toddler. Their sleep needs are constantly changing. So what worked for you 4-6 weeks ago probably isn't going to work 6 weeks on because their sleep needs change and you need to be able to keep up with it, or else you're going to be hit with the resistance, all of the things, the frequent wakes, split nights, the stuff, the early rising. Routine can be the answer to many, many of the sleep challenges that families experience. But here's the flip side. That's why I love routine. That's how I use routine. But here's how I also don't use routine. I don't consider it gospel, but rather as a guide. So I will forever share the message that it is so important to learn to read your baby and toddler's cues. Tune into what they're telling you. But the beauty about having routine is it actually makes your job easier in understanding these cues. Because say when you know a feed, like roughly when your baby or toddler is going to eat, and they start to get grizzly around that time, then that helps to narrow down the playing field on what might be going on. So you can offer a feed. Same goes with sleep. If you know that it's around about sleep time and all of a sudden your baby or toddler starts to get really stroppy, chances are they're tired. So it actually helps take the guesswork out of it. But definitely use it as a guide rather than gospel. I also don't use routine in the sense that I make routine work for us. I don't stay at home and am a slave to the cot. I get out, we get out and about. I find it actually easier to have routine because I know that we can alter sleep times and still make the overall daily sleep needs work based on knowing how much she needs during the day and roughly when those sleeps can fit in throughout the day. So you can take a routine, you can take the overall daily sleep recommendations and make it work for you. If you are at home, you can beautifully follow routine. If you're out and about, make it work for you. I also know when she'll feed, but I always offer a feed if she is demanding food at a different time. So this can be a big mind change because I often get asked on social media, what time are her feeds? You know, how many feeds is she doing? And sometimes it's really hard for me to answer because on some days she might have a morning breastfeed around the time she wakes up, which could be anywhere from 6 until 7, really. Sometimes we've had some early wakes. So there's not this scheduled time that I feed. On the other side of the coin too is on some days she might just have 3 feeds or 4 breastfeeds and she'll have her lunch and dinner and all of those things in there too. But then on other days, if she wants a breastfeed before she goes down for a nap, I'll happily give that to her. I consider that like a morning tea at her age, you know, or an afternoon tea. And I could offer her a snack at her age in lieu of that. But basically, I definitely am not using feeding times as this strict, you can only eat at this time, you know, despite you telling me otherwise. So another reason how I use but don't use routine is when sickness hits. So when sickness hits, it's a whole nother kettle of fish. We need to make sure that we're meeting what our baby or toddler needs when they're sick. When I'm sick, all I want to do is sleep. The biggest thing that helps with routine in sickness is once that sickness has passed, you know how to get back on track, because that can be such a challenge for so many families is A, when do we get back on track, and how to do that after you've been hit with any sort of sickness. So there is a little bit of a summary of how I both use routine and love routine, but also make it work for my family and follow my baby and toddler when Georgie gets there, my baby's cues, because that is where the magic happens when you're utilizing routine, is to use it as a guide. Now, I have some very exciting news because currently at the time of recording this, if you are listening to this live, I am running a giveaway over on my Instagram, and I'm going to share the details on how you can enter on here too. But I have a product. I have a program called the Baby and Toddler Routine Bundle. This is my done for you program that takes the guesswork out of figuring out when your baby or toddler needs to sleep so you can cultivate calm and consistent daytime rhythms for a well-slept baby and hashtag easier mum life. Because when we have routine, ultimately it's making mum life a heck of a lot easier for us too. So if you are keen to enter that, you can head over to jenniferbutler.online/giveaway. It's going to give you all the details on what's included in the baby and toddler routine bundle, and it's going to give you a chance to enter the draw. So at 11:59 today, 11:55 I should say, today is when entries will close, and all the winners for my 5-day giveaway, there's going to be something new every day, so make sure you're tuning in every day to the podcast to learn about that. All winners are going to be announced on Mother's Day, the most important day of the year, dare I say. And so you can head on over to learn about that. Now, if you're listening outside of the Mother's Day giveaway, you can also get your hands on the baby and toddler routine bundle at any point. So to nab the baby and toddler routine bundle, if you know that you need this in your life to create these calm and consistent rhythms to your day, then you can head to jenniferbutler.online/baby toddler routine bundle. That is all one word. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I have loved being in your ears. If you get a chance, I would so love for you to leave a review and rate this podcast, because it helps send out the message to the podcast gods to share it around as much as possible so I can help as many families as possible. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in